Welcome back, everyone. Now we're going to start talking a little bit more about the integration of dragon dreaming and sociocracy, right? So we had this kind of diagnosis. It's just really a quick look into the strengths and the shortcomings of each of them, because the need for integrating both was because we saw that the dragon dreaming had some advantages that Sociocracy didn't have, and Sociocracy had some advantage that dragon dreaming didn't have. So they were very, very complementary. And a few things that we mention or people usually notice about dragon dreaming is that it's fun, it's creative, the tools are super participative, and you can really use them for other things as well. And the two phases that are lacking in most projects, which are dreaming and celebrating, right? So this is quite straightforward. But when we practice dragon dreaming, we usually notice that some people think it's just for projects, and it's not. As Krishna already mentioned, it's also for organizations. And anything really can be a project. Even your day can be a project. So you can really use dragon dreaming for many other things. And it was also a little bit weak in the doing area, right? The meetings, the monitoring, it is not so clear. There weren't so many tools developed for that part. So that's why we thought, Sociocracy really integrated well for that area. And also there was some lack of clarity of around autonomy, right? Because everyone is self in every task. Each person is like self-enrolled, and I say I'm going to do that, but there is not so much responsibility for that person if that person doesn't do that. Well, how can we really make people accountable for their tasks and also their area of autonomy, right? Because I'm just putting my name onto a task, but maybe the other task is also correlated, and then there's someone else in the other task. So yeah, there are a few areas where this could be clearer. And regarding sociocracy, there's a lot of clarity. When we have the description of roles and description of circles and double links, everything like the structure keeps it really, really clear. And in the meetings, the meeting processes, the rounds, the way that the decision making is done to arrive to consent is really, really straightforward and clear. And also this way of navigating via tensions, which connects to the regenerative culture that we are after, right? Because dragon dreaming brings that into its own DNA almost, in the core principles of serving the earth and building community and personal growth. And we see in sociocracy this navigation through tensions as a way also to connect to this regenerative culture. But we hear a lot, and first impression I personally had of sociocracy is that it was really rigid and really cold and really tough. So some people might see it as a lack of magic or lack of fun, lack of this way of being really in the flow, as we are when we do a dragon dreaming project, right? And maybe there's some lack of project design tools as well, right? So is there any other aspects of dragon dreaming and sociocracy that you see that are complementary, or you see as shortcomings or strengths that you would like to point out? Maybe you can write also in the chat. I don't see the chat, Tanya, do you?
Yeah, but no one has written anything.
Okay, cool.
Oh, wait, so this is from Kihan. I find DD unique in the sense that dreamers let go of his dream, her dream.
Ah, yes, brilliant. This is a very, very important part of dragon dreaming, right? And it also happens when we do sociocracy projects that there is a leader, or there's someone, a pioneer that starts a project. But at some point, him or her, they need to let go of their individual dream and allow for the collective dream to come forth, right? So this is super important, this concept. Yeah. And if you remember anything else, please just write down on chat. But we can go on. And Ted says, consent to a plan means to transition ownership of the plan to the circle. Yeah, that's true. So when we do consent, in a way, we're also creating this engagement, this overall engagement. So they are super complementary. Okay, so how do we do dragon dreaming and sociocracy integration? Of course, this is just like one way of seeing it, and I believe Tanya agrees with me when we say that this is like a study, like a research, a lifetime kind of path rather than a conclusion, right? So this is an ongoing learning that we have. But so far, the ways that we have done this is either combining dragon dreaming tools with sociocracy patterns, or in order to design an organization from scratch, right? So when we have the tools of sociocracy and we add the dragon dreaming tools, we notice that they become more fun, they become more collaborative in a way that people engage, that is not only by talking, but also by doing something like with post-its and stuff like that and writing down. So we usually use that for proposal forming, for the definition of circles and roles, for projects. When I say projects, the projects of a row or of a circle in this case. To describe the purpose aim or to describe the circle responsibilities. So all of this we have already done using the dragon dreaming tools. And if you have this organization starting from scratch, like we did with Bio Inspiral, you can also combine the two, like start with the dreaming and then, go to the planning and celebrate and doing and celebration. You can use this overall dragon dreaming path and integrate the both tools from both dragon dreaming and Sociocracy. And Tanya, please step in whenever.
Okay.
Okay. So first one, proposal forming and dreaming circle. How could you use that? So proposal forming is already a process that is quite open, and in some ways it already makes people bring their dreams, right? But you could do that intentionally. So you could use, for instance, a generative question that describes. So first you describe the context, the tension. What is it that you're talking about? You can do picture forming. You can do whatever you already do for proposal forming, and then you can do a first round with one of these or any other generative question, like, what is your dream to take care of this issue? So you make people go more towards the vision. How can this be 100% your dream? Like this brings the person engaged and also co-responsible for that. How would you feel if this tension was completely resolved? So this also brings a perspective of seeing yourself after this tension or this issue is resolved, and then you can project yourself into the future and see, how do I feel? I feel like this, and then you can bring that into the table. and what needs to happen for you to be 100% satisfied. You don't need to use all of them together. It's just like examples of generative questions that you could use, right?
Nara, can I just add something as well?
Yes, please.
I think we should talk about why we came to this conclusion of adding proposal forming in the dreaming circle. One reason was that we felt that a lot of people found it difficult to dream, and often the dreams were very nebulous and often more based on values instead of actually something that could actually happen, something more tangible. So we started looking at, okay, well, how can we take proposal forming, which is something that helps you really focus on what you want to do, but sometimes takes you too deep into it that it becomes like really practical and not so much lets you expand your consciousness about something. And also, but dream so that, you know, you can dream big, but you can dream something that you can do. So what we started to do was we started to mix the two together. So we started using a driver. So we got that from Sociocracy 3.0. And we form a driver first. And then from the driver, we would do some proposal forming. We would just go through the first step of proposal forming, where we would come up with generative questions. And then from that point on, we would leave those questions open, because those questions helped us to expand our knowledge and our ideas and thoughts about what our dream could be. And then we went to the dream circle, and we felt that that started helping us to have dreams that were real dreams, that there were these big dreams where we actually dreamt about something, but that after that we could use it to go on to something else. So it wasn't something that was so nebulous or something that we couldn't really continue on with. It was something that was a lot more practical, but had the dream aspect to it. So we actually formed a new pattern, bringing the two together. So the first part of that was the driver. Then the second part of that was like the proposal, the step of listing generative questions about the driver. And then we went into the dream circle. So if some people are thinking, how can I bring that together? That was one way that if you feel that your dream is kind of not, it's maybe people have been, if you do a dream and you can't really see yourself in the dream, or people can't see themselves in the dream, sometimes the dream has been dreamt on a level that's really too hard to get to. So you might want to try doing a bit of the proposal forming first to help people getting to the dream phase.
Cool. Very good. There was a question about what the driver is. And I answered mostly, you know, it's the context and the need, but basically it's a way of describing the intention in a way that it's clearer for everyone what is the issue here, and it also replaces in some places like the aim or the purpose of the role or the circle. Cool, but let's go on. Another way of combining tools is using the Carbeard first, as we saw last time. And then once you have everyone self-inscribed to the task that they want to do, then you can create the circles from there. You know, sometimes when you're designing a new organization, or it's just really a project, but you want to do circles, then you can create the circles and the roles from there. And sometimes we use the song line, like when you have this, yes, thank you. You have this line that comes from the top and all the way to the bottom. It has correlations, right? Because one task depends on the other. So you can use the song lines to define the circle. And sometimes the role can also be a task or a series of tasks, a set of tasks. Tanya, do you want to add anything?
Sure. When you do the Carbeard, one interesting thing to do is these lines that we create, which we call the song lines. If you do them in different colors, it helps you to define which ones, what are the flows of the project. So what we call in Dragon Dreaming the flows, we might call the circles. You know, we might not. It depends. Like you have to be. it's not so clear cut. Like there might be one flow here and another flow here, and you say, oh yeah, those two flows are working towards the same purpose. Yeah, maybe we can put them together. But one way that helps you out is doing them in different colors, and then by color you can see what connects to each other.
Exactly. Brilliant. And this is just to remember, how we did the pens, right? So if you're responsible for the task, then you put yourself, your name or your initials in green. And if you want to learn about it and support the task, you put yourself in red. And if you're a mentor or somebody that doesn't want to do it, but you can help, you can support it, and then you put your initials in black. So in that way, you can also see, the tasks, and then, like Tanya said, with colors, define the roles and the circles.
And I think I just want to go back a little bit to what you said in the shortcomings. This is self-management, I think, at its best. Dragon Dreaming really, when you use the cut of beard and you use it to work for the team, then it's really good. But as Nara was saying, sometimes you have someone in green who's responsible for an activity, but that activity might be connected to another one, and so it's not really clear where the autonomy lies, which green person can make a final decision about something.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that lacks a little bit. This is one of our shortcomings. So for things that are really like for activities that maybe we're coming together and we're organizing an event and we have to do like a list of activities and people put their name beside them and they go do it, that's okay. But when you're talking about things that are going to take longer, when you're talking about activities that are actually projects that take longer, I think that we have to be careful here, because we lack clarity on who can make what decisions. So this is where we feel that if you are going to take the flows from the cut of beard and you're going to figure out, okay, what circles do we have from this, then you also need to look at the activities and see what roles there are, and then define that with people. Okay, so who really can make the decisions about what?
Exactly. And then Lorraine is asking, are you experimenting integrating Agile with this? It feels like a natural fit. Well, Sociocracy 3.0 has done this integration already in a way. They have implemented lots of Agile. So we end up using bits of it, because in Brazil we mix everything. We mix Sociocracy 3.0, Dragon Dreaming, and Holacracy, and classic Sociocracy, right, Tanya? But we have never done this study as we did with Dragon Dreaming. So
I think mostly what we use today are the stand-up meetings and the Kanban. We use a lot all the time. And the backlogs, we use those things. But other than that, yeah. And we haven't tested many other things, Agile things.
Yeah, and sometimes what we do is do the dream plan, do celebrate, but instead of doing the Carabert, in the planning phase, decide that we use a Kanban like Trello, like a system like that, and then we put all the tasks and everything, and we do the process, but not with the Carabert designed like that, right? So sometimes we replace things. But yeah, the intention is the same. It's still planning, it's still doing. Oh God. Okay, so stand-up is when you do a meeting with just 15 minutes, and then you're just standing up because it needs to be really quick, and it's usually an operational meeting, right? You're just synchronizing, removing blockages, and updating the progress of everything. And the backlog is a list of tensions for either of governance or operational. And then we also use the emotional backlog concept in Brazil, but this is us, that there's also tensions that are in this relation area, right? This relationship area. Yeah.
Brazilians are very emotional, so we needed to add another aspect to Sociocracy, where we take care of the relationships when we're implementing Sociocracy. Very needed.
Very needed. Right. And the other way of using tools together with, Dragon Dreaming and Sociocracy is to co-create a project within a circle or role. So whenever you have the role will have projects, right? So you can use a quicker version of Dream Plan to Celebrate. If you're just one person on your own, you just think of those phases and see, how to get along with that task that you have, that responsibility that you have for the role, and you iterate, right? And if you have like two people or more in a circle or doing your role, you can get together and do the Dream Plan to Celebrate also. So it's like a microwave. I think it was one of Jerry's questions last time. Can you use it for smaller projects? Yes, of course you can. It's just do like a quicker version. You don't need to do a car beard. You can do Kanban, for instance, or you can just go through the phases, do like a quick dream. For instance, like yesterday I had a meeting to plan a 3-hour session, and then since the three of us knew Dragon Dreaming, I said, okay, let's do a quick dreaming circle. And we did just like maybe 5 or 10 minutes of dreaming, and we collected, and it was there, our vision. So you can really, with practice, you can really do it for even smaller projects. And then, like one of the main things that we do and we love, and you're gonna do it today, is using the umbrella phase to describe, to co-create the purpose or the aim of the circle. So it depends on the line that you're using. You would either do a driver or a purpose or a name, right, for the circle or the role. But writing it together, especially when you're creating a new organization or creating a new circle, whatever, is really, really healthy, is really, really cool. So we're going to do this together. And we're going to split you guys in groups. You can move on to the next slide, please. And you're going to be imagining that you're part of SOFA. So this is our exercise, and you're creating a new circle. So you know that there is already the content circle. There are many circles, but it doesn't matter if you end up creating a circle that already exists. And you're going to choose a need, right? So the first thing is somebody in the circle is going to say, okay, let's do something, a circle that we need to disseminate sociocracy for, I don't know, blind people. So we need to create podcasts instead of videos or something like that. So it doesn't matter. Just somebody gives an idea for the need. And then somebody opens an empty Google document, and you're going to send a link to the others in the group. And then each person is going to think for a minute of a sentence that can be the circle aim, right? What is the purpose of this circle? So given that need, what is it that is the aim of this circle? And one person that feels ready first, it doesn't matter. Some people asked last time, who writes down the first sentence? It doesn't matter. Whoever feels ready first, then writes down in the empty Google Docs that you have before you, and everybody will have the chance to edit it together during 10 minutes. So I'm gonna give you, because you have that little first part, I'm gonna give you a little over 10 minutes. So it's gonna be 12 minutes, so that the first part is done in 2 minutes, and then you have 10 minutes in silence. And everyone is going to edit that sentence in whatever way they want to be, like the slide before, if you want to show. It's just that this time you're not going to see it written over or anything, because it's going to be on Google Doc. So it's going to really erase. If you erase a word or anything, it's going to be erased, right? And then whatever sentence is left at the end of the 10 minutes, that is the proposal. So this is a way of already combining dragon dreaming with sociocracy, because that when dragon dreaming we would say that's it, no more changes. But what we can do also is then do a round of consent to see if there is any objections, because since you haven't been able to speak, then maybe there is an objection to anything that is written there, right? Any questions about this?
There's some questions here. Do we edit by all writing on the same sentence, or a copy of it for our own editing and then combine?
No, just edit in the same sentence.
So it says in Google Docs, can use suggesting mode and see markups of changes with prior text crossed out. What we really want is that everyone just has the courage, okay,
cool,
to scratch, erase things, move the order of things, add new words, take out words. What you need to do at this moment is remain in total silence and try and get to the best phrase that represents the circle by making whatever changes that you feel are right. So we're not making suggestions, we're actually making changes to the sentence. And you don't need to worry if it's not the best, we're just looking for good enough. But the idea is get involved and try and change that sentence. It's kind of nerve-wracking, especially when it's the first time, because people are scared. Oh, I don't know if I want to erase that word, or I want to erase that part of the sentence, or if I want to write something else because I might be offending someone. That's okay. That is the idea of this part of dragon dreaming. We need to have courage to put down on paper what we want to see.
And have fun. Think of it as a game. You know, it's just like you have 10 minutes. So your creativity is going to be...
And just when Bernadette says, what if someone deletes something I wanted to change? Well, if it's deleted, it's no longer there. If you want to put it back, you can. Someone might delete it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. What else? There is also a button if you guys want to call us. So you can call the host if necessary.
Yeah. Sorry, Nara, I got a question.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what is the need to create a new group, a new circle? Because or we create just a new circle for what?
Yeah, somebody will give an idea. So one of you guys needs to come up with this initial idea. I didn't write it down.
What if is there a new circle that's being contemplated in SOFA? Maybe we can ask Ted.
Yeah, Ted and Jerry. Okay, is there a new circle?
Yes.
Have an idea, Jerry?
Well, one would be an education, learning, sociocracy in education or learning.
Okay.
Ah, cool. Okay, so we can
Another
all work
one would be sociocracy in NGOs, in nonprofits.
Cool.
Okay, so we have 2 suggestions. So then I think each group can just decide if they want to do one or the other, education or NGOs and sociocracy.
Any others, Ted, you want to add in?
Well, I was thinking for a second mapping, but I actually like what you're suggesting, and maybe the mapping thing. But we have the plan of mapping organizations all over the world and actually pulling that information together. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's an option.
Okay, so we have 3, and then people can decide.
Brilliant. Cool. So real things. I love it.
How many people per group? 4?
Yeah, 4 to 5 per group.
Okay. So can I form the groups?
Yes, if there aren't any other questions.
And so then one of us in the group is going to create a Google document.
Yes, whoever is more techie savvy can can just open a Google Doc and then share the link with the others. But just say I'm gonna do it. Otherwise, the others, will not know.
Yeah.
Okay. Once again, for some reason, I'm not able to create these breakout groups, so I am going to ask that Ted do this for me, please.
Yeah. Do you want to make me host quickly?
Yeah, I'm going to. Ted. Okay, here we go.
Sorry, what was the group size?
About
4 to 5 people.
4 to 5 people, yeah.
And we are not in any group.
So it probably have to be four people. There are only 16 people.
4, okay.
Oh, and Sophie and Hannah are together, so they count as 2.
That's true. Okay, making it complicated.
I know.
Where there you are. There. Okay, hold on. Add a room. Send them there. Jerry, do you want to be in a room?
Yeah.
This time now there. And there's Nara. Well, it's almost working out. One now has 3. Is 3 okay too, or do you want me to condense it?
No, that's okay. 3's okay.
There's a couple of questions in chat. Do you mind responding before we leave?
Okay. Is the chat just for the group, so can share a link? Yes, exactly. Each group will have their own chat. We won't see it. Understanding the driving would be helpful. Well, I guess that would be Jerry to say what is the context and what is the need for the circles that you have.
I think people are entering into paralysia per analysis, which is one of the, I think people that for the idea of the activity, just make it up. It doesn't really matter. Because what happens is we start to enter into analysis paralysis. And this is something that we really try and avoid in Dragon Dreaming. So just put it on paper and see what comes out. Okay, so make up anything about education, make up anything about sociocracy and NGOs, and then whoever comes up with a sentence that works, put it on paper and then just go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, ready to open the rooms?
Yes. I think it's working.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is everyone back? I think so, huh? 16. So how was it? Did you get to a sentence? I would love to see them.
Anyone like to read their sentence?
In order to practice learning by doing, the aim of the circle is to spread the joy of applying sociocracy by collaborating with schools and educational centers, organizations to adopt sociocratic principles by developing narrative tools and interactive exercises for participatory education. Oh my God, it's beautiful.
That was 10 minutes.
Wow. Amazing. This circle makes sociocracy accessible to schools in an easy, realistic, step-by-step way that enables young people to autonomously lead the evolution of learning, seed democracy, develop higher consciousness. Oh my God. And empowering them to forge their own path and learn how to work in effective teams, teachers, and management to collaborate more easily and model the sociocratic way. Whole systems, transformation, admin, teachers, students, families working together to evolve learning. Okay, this was a bit long. Maybe you could be a little bit more concise, but it's okay. To share the experience of using democracy in education, which helps people connect, co-create, and sustain life on planet Earth. Very good. Huh? Do you want to read the next one? I need to drink a cup of water.
I can read it. The aim of this circle is empowering nonprofit organizations to understand and implement sociocracy in order to help them to move forward to equity, inclusiveness, happiness, transparency, and effectiveness, specifically by developing materials, webinars, trainings, strategizing with and supporting circle members in their implementations, presenting at conferences, social media, and etc. Okay. Very good. Would anyone like to comment on how this experience was? I know it was short, but even so, you guys came up with great purposes or aims for the circles. Anyone have an observation, a comment, an insight?
It's a little nerve-wracking.
Who's speaking? Let me see.
Jesse.
Who is it?
It's Jesse.
Jesse, tell me more. Why was it nerve-wracking?
We're rarely in situations where you have to directly change someone that someone else has just done.
Yeah.
It feels really important.
Okay. Anyone
Sophia and Hannah say, we thought we had enough time. Cool.
Anyone else?
I actually had an experience of actually feeling a little more free, because it was really nice to have the silence. It allowed me to like deal with my own thoughts and then speak them. So I actually found a lot more space in this process, and it felt a lot more calming for me.
Okay, that's good.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think we too. It was at the beginning we were all a bit reluctant to change things, and am I allowed to do that now? But then it started to become like kind of organic, to see really, okay, how does it fit in the whole thing, and yeah, it was great. I mean, I think we had needed a little more time, but yeah, still was great.
Brilliant. And then if you do afterwards the consent round and check if anyone has objections, then everybody just relax, right? Because they know that there will be time also to integrate any possible objections that were not spoken, during the silent time. So I think it's a good combination, good way.
Bernadette said, I think it would be harder on a flip chart. I invite everyone to test that. It works very well.
It's fun. It's really fun.
A lot of fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Reminds me of, Laureen says, reminds me of research and collective intelligence, less trying to influence each other, more individuals adjusting based on their individual sense than taking that of others. Perfect. Yes, exactly. And also that balance between courage and consideration, right? The win-win that we're looking for. Jerry says, need to distinguish between mission and aim station. Perfect. Yeah. If you would do that, maybe you would do both separately, right? You would do mission first and then aim. Yeah. And then maybe use the dreaming circle to base the vision, for instance.
When we want to write a mission, for example, we agree on what the mission needs to be, like if it's going to be how and for who. Then we set those kind of guidelines before we do the activity. If we're going to do a driver, we usually do the context first, give the context 5 minutes to do, and then we do the need after that. So there are exactly, if you want something specific, be specific on what that layout would look like, what that would look like, so that people can write their sentence when they're thinking about it. They can think in the way that a mission should be written, or the way that an aim should be written.
Exactly. Great. So shall we go on? So when we saw Dragon Dreaming last time, we saw that after this umbrella phrase, we do the specific objectives, right? So that process for creating specific objectives could also be used to co-create the responsibilities of that circle. So you just created the aim, and then afterwards you could create the responsibilities using the post-its. What are the things this circle or role need to accomplish to fulfill its aim or its purpose, or the driver that you have defined. So in this part, what we do is kind of a brainstorming, but usually we do it with post-its, and then we combine them, right? We classify them, we group them, so that it's a co-creation, through all this. It is really a use of the collective intelligence when we combine whatever each person is thinking of. So you're gonna be working again. The idea is that you can go to the next one. Yeah, the idea is that you're now gonna go into the groups, and you're gonna imagine that you're going to be creating the responsibilities for that circle. And the intention is to simulate as if you were working with post-its, right? So each person individually is going to write 3 to 4 items. So they're going to be separate ideas, and you're going to just use the scratchpad anywhere in your computer to write those 3 or 4 separate ideas. And then again, you can use the same Google Sheet. You don't need to use another one, because you're going to be using the how can I say, the aim that you have written as a basis for this exercise. And in rounds, each person is going to read and paste each idea, one idea at a time. Right. So, for instance, I'll say, Tanya, what is your idea? And then she's gonna read it and then paste it in the spreadsheet. Oh yes, I suggested a spreadsheet. So you're gonna open a new document. It's just because with the cells you can copy and paste more easily rather than a Google Doc. You could do that in the Google Doc as well, but it's just to organize things. And then you copy and paste that to a cell, and then the next person, for instance, I say, oh, Jesse, read yours, and then if it's the same, it's related to the one that Tanya said, or they're both in the area of communication or whatever, then you put it below in the column. And if it's a different thing, then you put it next to it in the next column, right? So the idea is that each column will have a category of somehow ideas that are associated. And then afterwards, you're going to combine them and create a sentence that is a responsibility connected to each of those columns, right?
Nara, is there a generative question for this one?
I didn't think of one. Do you want to think of one?
Yeah, I think the question that you would probably be answering for this is, what are the things that need to happen for us to make our purpose come true?
Okay, so what are the things that need to happen for us to make our purpose come true, or this aim come true? Is there any question about the exercise? Now the challenge will be, and I hope it works, to make you go back to the same rooms, right? So if it doesn't happen, then you just, play with that.
So I put the question in the chat. If people do go into a different group, then they'll just, everyone should reread the purpose or the aim, just so they can remember what it is, and then just think, what are the things? And these things can be one words, or it can be a sentence. You don't really have to spend too much time on these things that you want to write down on the Post-its. After that, once we have the columns with the related terms or ideas, then from there you'll write a sentence.
And I just thought, if you want to use the same Google Doc, you just need to create a table, right? Just insert a table, and then you can also use columns, so you don't need to open a Google Sheet. So yeah, so that way you will all be seeing, you're looking at the aim at the same time that you just copy and paste. Yeah.
So the question is, the sentence is an overarching summary or something like that? It's something like that. You'll take the ideas in that one column, and then you'll write it out as if it were responsibility. So starting with an action verb, and explaining what kind of responsibility needs to be done so that you can make those things that are in that column happen. So if Nara had said, oh, imagine there's a column that's related to communication. So it might be something like, develop the communication strategy, or develop a communication strategy, or I don't know, something like design the visual identity of the organization, something like that. You'd kind of take the ideas that are in that column and kind of come up with a responsibility that circle will need to do.
Cool.
So yeah, an overarching summary, yeah.
Brilliant. So you also have 12 minutes for this, or 13 minutes. You have until 1:20, right? So at 1:19, I'll call you guys back. Well, my time. There you go. Everyone's back now. How was it this time?
It was great. We got a lot done in a very short amount of time.
Cool. That's the idea.
Too much time pressure.
Yes. But did you manage to do anything in your group?
Yeah, sure. But indeed will be, I think we could arise more collective intelligence with more time. But
Okay.
we get what we could get in the time. But
Yes.
that was hard.
Yeah. Does anybody want to share or the sentences that they came up with, or if you got to the sentence, or the list if you didn't get to the sentence? So David says their group didn't get to the sentences. Okay. Lorraine found that amazing. Really allows fully participatory, self-organizing, collective intelligence emerging processes. Cool.
So we didn't get to the sentences either, but something I wondered is about the size of the group. So how many people does it need to create that? I think sometimes if you have not enough people, it takes longer to get into that flow, and maybe if you have too many people, then it becomes totally overwhelming. So it's very interesting, I think, to find the size of those groups. Is there any thing you recommend, or any experience you have about that?
Yes. Actually, John also he has this graph of how many lines of communication there are. Each extra person that you add, because imagine that each person has a relationship to herself, a relationship to the other person, and then the relationship of everyone, right? So it's exponential. Actually, there is a kind of a map that a drawing that you can see, you know, like 2 and then 3. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if you have 3 people, you have 7 lines of communication or of connection or relationship. So it increases exponentially, right? So it's kind of a rule of thumb, but we usually work with no more than 8 people in a group, right? And then this could be something that you can really feel in your group, but not too small and not too big, I would say. Tanya, do you have an experience of size?
Yeah, I mean, on the lines of 8, I think 8 is what, 56 relationships? I can't remember in the end what it was. I can't remember. But it's quite a few relationships. So when I have a group that's bigger, so let's say I have a group of like 25 people or 30 people that are dreaming the same dream. I usually split them into smaller groups where they dream the same dream, and then we have a whole bunch of dream circles up there, and then they do within the small groups, they do the same process, but instead of maybe coming up with 6 to 8 objectives, they come up with like 2 or 3, and then we put them all together, and then the group votes on what are the 2 or 3 strategic objectives that they want to focus on for the planning part. So there are ways that you can work with that, but usually you want like the planning team, the people who are dreaming together and doing the objectives, to be around like 6 to 8 people. We have worked with people from like 6 to 12, but it ends up being kind of big. And it's kind of the same as Sociocracy. You know, when you get it up to a circle of like 10, 12 people and you have to do consent decision making, it gets a bit tiring. So it's almost the same rule of thumb for Sociocracy as it is in Dragon Dreaming.
Beautiful. There are a few more comments in the chat. So Sihan says, I think we did 45 minutes of talking and 10 minutes writing. Beautiful. And Lauren says, our categories were assess, connect, actualize, produce, illuminate, evaluate. Brilliant. Cool. So next we're gonna go into, okay, so are groups willing to share what they came up with? Just copy it here. So yeah, Ted is asking, so there's a link of a Google Doc so that you can all paste everything there.
Right, since you all did work for us, I want to see it.
Yes, absolutely. Why not? Synergy, right? So let's continue. And then last bit that we would like to share with you guys is the other use that we have when you're going to design an organization from scratch, right? And it can also be like, as we were talking before, like a mission circle or something that you're going to plan for next year, for instance. It doesn't need to be a new organization, but something new, like a bigger project that is new. Go ahead. And then remember that we had this in the last session, you know, this wheel, starting with the stimulus and then reaching a certain threshold, and then needing to have a response and feedbacking until, you know, iterating until you're fine. And this is the basis for Dragon Dreaming project, but also it could be the basis for an organization, because when an organization starts, it is a project, right? If you're starting a co-housing together, it is a project. If you're starting a business together, it is a project. So when there is this starting, then you can also use this whole wheel and integrating tools from Dragon Dreaming and Sociocracy as we do. And as you remember from last time, whenever we're talking about the stimulus, we're talking about this first Dragon Dreaming phase, which is the dreaming. And then you go into the planning, and you go into the doing, and into the celebrating. But since it is a circle, you can actually start whatever. And we usually start in celebrating. So we usually start the past with celebrating the past. You know, if it is a group of people that are coming together, each person has a path of why they're there and why they came together for this project, right? So it is a good idea to arrive or to do at least one circle of celebrating the individual. And then you go into the dreaming and planning and doing, and then come back to celebrating. Next. But another way of looking at this wheel of stimulus, threshold, response, and feedback is thinking of the stimulus as the purpose. So if you're talking about the organization, there is this area of the identity, of the purpose. What is the soul or the bigger evolutionary purpose of that organization, right? So this could be the dreaming phase. This could be understood as a dreaming phase. And when you're talking about the threshold, which would be the planning, we're talking about the structure. Creating the boundaries, right? Creating the organizational domains, whatever is the containers of the organization. And when we're talking about the response, it's all about the process. It's the ongoing living of that organization. And the feedback is the constant continuous improvement, the constant smaller cycles of review and adjustment, right? And when we're talking about a specific tension within that ongoing organization, we also do this loop, right? So we also think about the tension. We also think about the context and needs. So when you're talking about the threshold, it would be the driver, as we spoke before, or a way of describing the tension, whatever it was you're used to. And then the response would be an action, a policy, a role, or a circle. So the consent decision making to define what is the response. And the feedback is usually evaluation processes, right? Next. And finally, oh my God, the formatting is not so good in this one, but here are a few of the tools that we use. So in this beginning, this first phase, we use the dreaming circle, right? We're dreaming, but we could also be collecting the attention, the needs. It's all about this understanding, this mapping of who is this organization. And when we're doing the structure, we're talking about designing the circles, creating the double links, the walls, designing the metrics and the indicators. And the process is the ongoing sociocratic process with all the meetings. So here we also would use the 15 minutes stand-up meetings for the operational part, but also for the governance, adjusting that structure that was designed in the planning phase, right? So we would be evolving the policies with consent decision making. And finally, the feedback, which is iterative. And remember, it's a fractal. So there is a feedback in the first phase, in the second phase, in the third phase, and in the fourth phase within itself as well, right? So it's more like that. And here is a way of seeing it all together. For instance, how could you start? Start with celebration. So I'm starting here with the in the yellow, between the yellow and the black, which is the individual, right? So the individuals arrive to create a new project, a new organization together, and then you start with the celebration of the paths of these individuals. Then you do the dreaming circle to create the vision for the project. And then you do the umbrella phase, and then you can do the vision, mission, aim, or you can do the purpose, or whatever sentence, or the driver if you're using Sociocracy 3.0. But you use, like we did today, like you guys exercised, a phrase that is that one elevator pitch that anyone belonging to the project has to have in mind. Why are we doing this? So this is all in the dreaming kind of phase. Then what you could do next is co-creating the kind of the specific aims or the strategic objectives, right? So for an organization, it could also have strategic objectives. So it really depends on how you want to work, but you would do, the bigger sentences with the second process that you tried today. Then you could do the carbeard or not. Like we said, sometimes we use it, sometimes we don't use it, but carbeard is nice to have in a wall if you have like a war room that everyone can see. There was a friend of us in Sorocaba, Marcel. He had this project that you arrived to this place and you could see in the wall. It was beautifully designed and it was really like an art piece. So it's really good for people to remain connected to that project. And then from that, like we spoke before, you could create the circle and the roles. And then doing the normal, regular, sociocracy processes, the governance meetings to adjust everything that was designed to begin with, the operational meetings, the relational meetings, like we like in Brazil to have all this emotional kind of therapy kind of sessions. But you could have whatever processes that you decide to have for this organization. And then in the celebration, you could have all the evaluation and reflection on how was this design of the organization. But you can also have like feedback for the circles, feedback for the roles. You can do whatever evaluation processes you do, and end this cycle because it's iterative, so it continues afterwards, but end this cycle also with celebration, maybe even with a party with food and beverages, so that you can really share the spirit of co-creating an organization. And Tanya, do you want to add anything before we go into meetings?
I think just one thing that we like about Sociocracy, and that we think Sociocracy celebrates quite a bit, but it doesn't seem very obvious, is the fact that all of the roles and the circles and whatever agreements that we have dates, evaluation dates. So also that's something that really goes into celebrating. I find that that is another celebration. And just, I think, just remember that when the umbrella phrase that we just did, you can do that when you're looking at your organization, or where we have circles and roles, you can also do it when you're looking at your circles. Roles, I think maybe people can, doesn't need to be the whole group who maybe thinks about the roles, but I think when, especially when you're starting an organization, having this process where people kind of think of these circles, that the umbrella phrase works there as well as when you're looking at the organization. So it can be used in those two spots. That's it.
Cool. And then the other part is meetings, right? So as we said before, here we split the meetings into 3 types, but sometimes they are combined. So sometimes we do a meeting that is both governance and operational, and something happens in the middle, then we need to have like a 10 minutes or 15 minutes on relational as well, right? So mostly we plan to governance and operational, and relational happens. Or we can really plan separate meetings for each of these objectives, right? And the intention is that the governance gives clarity to the structure, the operational synchronizes the work, and the relation now clears the field and also is a place for celebration, right? And we use this as 3 modes throughout the organization. And here's an example of how could the meeting process be, right, by integrating all this. So you could do the check-in, the admin, you know, I don't know if you all know the admin, but, you know, checking whoever is absent or not there, not present, the duration of the meeting, checking the minutes from last meeting, and giving information, and checking and confirming the next meeting session. So this is just quickly done in the beginning of the meeting. And then you could have like a whole section on the operational part, and doing updates on the metrics or indicators that you might have for your project or your organization, checking on the little projects. So if each person or each role has a project, then you can just check on progress of each project. And you can look at the career. So this is a good time if you have done a career in the design of the organization. Then every time you have a meeting, it's a good opportunity to check the progress, because remember you have the dots for the tasks of evolution, of the milestones. So then when something started, you paint half of it. And whenever it's done, and celebrate, this is very important. You paint half of it and you celebrate it, that has started. And then when it's finished, you paint the whole dot, and then you celebrate again, say, yay, it's finished. So it's a good way of keeping track of the evolution of the project. And then you can do the attention triage. I don't know if you guys do this, but we often do this, like this backlog of tensions, and then you just synchronize because it's all operational, and then just synchronize and remove blockages. And the question here would be, what do you need, right? And then afterwards, you do all the governance part with the proposals and the consent decision making, and then do the checkout. So this is one way of combining those two into a meeting. And then here it's just like there are many ways of viewing Dream, Plan, Do, Celebrate. So I invite you guys of seeing these phases in whatever, you know, for instance, when you a day when you wake up is a dreaming phase, and then you plan your day, that's the planning phase, and then you go there and then you do your day, that's your doing phase. And then at night when you're at home with your husband or your wife, your family, and then you're just getting together, integrating everything that happened that day, that's the celebrating phase. So everything can be seen as dream, plan, do, celebrate. So here is just a way of looking at these different types of meetings also in these 4 separate phases, right? So operational tensions, for instance, you could say that the dreaming is what do you need? And then the plan is when you're assigning the task, you found a resolution for that to synchronize that tension. And then doing is actually the acting of that. And then celebrating is reviewing, oh, did it work? It didn't work. The same for governance tensions. You can also think of dreaming as, for instance, the question round or picture forming. You're still you're not sure. You're still it's kind of a gray area that is starting to form in your mind, right? And then maybe the planning is the reactions round, and also the consent right, integrating objections. And the doing is implementing that policy that was consented. And then celebrating is evaluating that policy, right? So you can also break things down like that. And you could do it differently than I did. It's just a way of seeing it. And then next, there is also the relational.
Nara, I just want to say something before we move on.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do the updates on the metrics and the projects, and you're going to use the cut a beer, then you have to make sure that the metrics and the projects are connected to one of the green pens, one of those people who are responsible for those activities. And if not, then they'll be connected to the roles.
Yeah.
So that's really important. And then someone asked if we could talk a little bit more of how we do the tensions, how we do our operational tensions. And I want to know if you wanted to just model, you and I can model that quickly.
Yep, sure.
Okay. So who's going to facilitate?
You do. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me see. So any tensions today?
Yes, I have one.
What is it? 2 words, please?
Forwarding documents.
Forwarding documents. Okay, and mine is finances. Okay, what's your tension on forwarding documents?
So after we finish this webinar, we need to forward the documents to the participants, and we need to do that through TED as we did last time. And I think I would need help this time because I have another meeting just afterwards. And so last time I did it, but this time I won't be able to do it, and I would like to check if you could do it.
Okay, so what you need is you want to know if I can do that.
Yeah.
Right. I cannot do that because we both have a meeting. We're both in that meeting, actually. So I was wondering, would it be possible to send those things off maybe tomorrow morning? Can you check with Ted to see if we can send them off tomorrow morning?
Okay, I'll check with that then.
Okay. And then we can decide. Is your tension resolved?
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. So that would be how you would resolve it, Kihan. You would really try to find out what the tension is. So when you're asking what the tensions are, you just ask people to give you what their tension is in 2 words. They don't explain it. So if you have a group of like 8 people, you'll do a round and just ask people to name their tensions using 2 words. And then the facilitator will go through each one. It's always like, what do you need? What do you need? Always trying to ask the person who brought the tension to express what they need. If there's any role that's responsible for that need, then we'll go right to the role. So for example, imagine this tension was that Nara brought up, someone else is responsible for it. So let's imagine that Jerry's responsible for it. And then I'd say, okay, Jerry, well, that sounds like that's in your role. Can you get those documents off to Ted after the webinar? And then we'd check with him if he can do that or not. And if he can't, then we'd have to try and find another way that we would resolve that tension. But we really try and work on what the need is of the person that's bringing that tension and trying to resolve it. And if we can't resolve it, then if we've gone through everything and we can't really resolve it right then and there, the last question is, okay, well, what's an action that you can do today to get closer to resolving your tension? So let's we didn't really, Nara and I didn't really resolve our tension. So I might ask, okay, well, what's something that you can do to get closer to resolving your tension, Nara? What is something that you can do?
Like this time?
Yeah.
Well, talk to Ted, right?
Okay. Okay, so you'll talk to Ted and then, okay.
Yeah.
And then if this tension is still around tomorrow, we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So I think what is important here is to really make sure that these are the operational tensions, right? That it doesn't affect the governance. It doesn't change anything. So this is like within my role. As I imagine that I had a role, and then within my responsibilities I had to do that. So it's just synchronizing the work really, and not deciding whose responsibility it is, right? So for that, you really need to go into the regular governance meeting. And we usually use a software to do this. It's called Glassrock. I don't know if you guys know it, but there's also Holy Spirit now that is also doing this. But we like Glassrock because it's free, or most of it is free, and then there's the premium version that is paid. And then you have the tactical meeting, and then you can just write down those 2 words, and then once they're resolved, you just check them out. And also there is this action, and then you can just send an email via this application to send the action to that person. So it's really good for the operational part. Cool. Anything else, Tanya? Can we move on?
Yes, we can move on.
Cool. And then relational tensions, as we have mentioned, that we also use. It's also very connected to nonviolent communication, right? But if we're thinking about the dragon dreaming steps, then if you have a need for integration of the group, then you can think of, in the dreaming phase, of generative questions such as, what is your dream? What makes your heart sing? Right? In the planning, how can this be your project? Really testing the commitment of people. And what you can do is do happy hours, do parties, or just have like a moment in the week where people can really just chat and connect on that human level. And celebration could be related to assessing the culture and organizational climate, what is the mood of people, and then, going back into the dreaming and then changing that. So this could be a way of looking at integration. And in terms of conflict resolution, in the dreaming, the questions could be, how do you feel? What do you need? In the plan, could be the request from the nonviolent communication, and the doing, actually working together for that request to come true, right? To be implemented. And the re-celebration is the reviewed. How has it improved? Can we work together now? Is this relationship improved in any way? How has it affected the community and all? Yay, I think that was it. Do you guys have any questions? So there were some questions about the platform. Is that clear now, or do we need to explore a little bit more there?
Yeah, if you can go deeper, I would be appreciated.
Okay, Beatrice. About the platform, do you have a specific question about them?
I know, I have no idea about this platform, so.
Okay.
Information depends.
Okay, so the only thing is that these platforms have been developed for holacracy. So we have to adapt adapt the use of it for it to be suitable for sociocracy. So what they are doing in the Holy Spirit one is that they are creating templates for the meetings. So in the next version, there will be a way for us to really create our own template for the meetings that will be more open. Because holacracy has a kind of one way to do things, like a constitution it's kind of a recipe kind of template already fixed. So it's okay, but then if you want to do other things, then you cannot. So that's the only kind of shortcoming or setback of using of the tool. But on the other hand, you get a view of all the circles. So whenever you create a new role or create a new circle or a new policy, you can really kind of drill down and see. So you see the actual drawing of the circles, and then you drill down, and then you see the actual, yeah, thank you. So this is our Sociocracy Brazil circle. And you have many voices, one song there. You can go in there, so I can show. So this is our circle for the publishing, translation and publishing of Ted and Jerry's book. And we have the crowdfunding circle, we have the editing circle. Within crowdfunding, we have many roles. So people that are in charge of the marketing of the campaign, people that are in charge of the, whatever parts of the campaign. And in the editing, we have the actual translator that is doing, we have the people that are doing the review, and we have somebody that is hiring all the roles that are necessary. Here in the general circle, we have the finances. And here is the part where you go. So she went into the crowdfunding circle, and then you can open a governance meeting or a tactical meeting. And then here you have the lead link is kind of the operational leader, and you have the representative, and you also have the facilitator and the secretary. And she opened a governance meeting. So you add an item to the agenda, and there you go. You can write down your tension, and there you can add or edit a role, or add or edit a policy. You can restructure a subcircle. So if there is already a subcircle that you need to amend any kind of responsibility or any part of the text, you can do that, restructure subcircle. That is a new policy. You can add a new policy, and you can hold election. The only thing is that you can only hold elections for the facilitator, rep link, and secretary. So all the others, what we do is that we create a new policy, and then we hold an election, and then afterwards you just need to assign. Because in Sociocracy, I think it's decided by the lead link, right?
In holacracy, the lead link.
In holacracy, I'm
yeah.
sorry. In holacracy.
For tactical meetings.
Yeah. So that's a tactical meeting. So that's where you have the triage issues. So write down like 2 words for us to see there.
Okay.
Yeah. So then that's how you would add tensions, and then you go through them and then just check, and then you can do the action to do. You just add the action that the person needs to do, and then you select the person, and then the person will receive an email with the action. Speak to Ted, Nara. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
And now she'll receive it in her email.
I need to speak to Ted. So there you go. That's it. Always. Any other questions about, the overall presentation?
I think Krishna wanted to go back to the last slide, and I just have to get the slide now.
Last slide.
So let me just share.
Well, actually, I can. The question that I had, I was just wondering, because it's not exactly conflict resolution, but if there's a process, well, how do you approach when no one's like taking responsibility for something that the group needs? Like if everyone feels like their roles are all kind of full or something, and what is the approach then when there's still more things to be covered? How do you approach that in this sort of dragon dreaming way that I'm not quite sure of?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so oops. Yeah, so this we wouldn't consider it anything to do with conflict resolution. We'd do it more like in the operational meeting. Mm-hmm. So let's assume that someone is not, for the last 3 weeks, someone has not been able to get their projects done for some reason. And so we'd figure out, okay, well, what do you need? It would be the same question. What do you need? What do you need? Well, I need help. I can't do it. I'm too busy. Okay, well, what kind of help do you need? Well, I really need help with doing the diagrams because I have no idea how to do diagrams. I've never used Adobe, whatever. Okay, does anyone from the group know how to use Adobe and can help with the So we try and really find out what is it that the person really needs to get it done. And sometimes the person needs to leave that role, and when that's the case, then we find out we ask who can take on that role. But we really try and deal first with what that person needs in order to get that tension dealt with.
And if it hasn't been, like say you've uncovered a new need of the circle, but
Yeah.
it really doesn't really fit with any of the given roles right now, is there a method to figuring out whose responsibility that belongs to, like now that, because it's identified, okay, this tension is not covered in any of the roles that we have looked at. So what would be the way to integrate that?
We'd probably create a role.
Okay.
You know, if we think that it would be something that would be more ongoing, or if it's kind of a bit bigger, like if it's just to do a couple diagrams, maybe not. But if we think that it's something that needs more focus and more attention, then we'd probably create a new role for that and then select someone for it. Or we'd add a new flow to the Caribbean, or add new activities to the Caribbean, and then see which people can take on those activities. But more and more I'm going towards making new roles for when it's needed. I think it's easier to deal with monitoring the work getting done, and also helps people to develop more autonomy of how they can get things done and who can make what decisions about things.
And can you speak to then how the Caribbean and the roles kind of relate in your mind? Like how do you communicate between those two?
Yeah, so the roles for me, within the Caribbean, what ends up happening quite a bit is that one person will put their name in green within a flow, maybe 1, 2, or 3 times. So then sometimes naturally you see a role emerging outside of one of the flows, right? When that happens, that's really easy. When it doesn't happen, then you see that they might be small roles with really specific with a really specific focus. And then in that way, it's just really a person with a project. So then we don't create a role. So I only create a role when I really feel that there are quite a few activities in there that can make up a couple of responsibilities that when put together, they seem like that they're working towards one purpose. Then I create a role. When not, it's just a person's name and that project together, and that project which is aligned with that person. So that when we're doing the meeting, the operational meeting, you either are going to call people based on their role. So we have for example, we have a role in the organization that we just opened up, which is called Celebrate Good Times. So I'd say celebrate good times. How's this project? How's this project? How's this project? And that the person who's in that role will respond. But if there's a person that's connected to a project and not a role, then I'll say, Nara, how's the project on conflict resolution? So, you know, in sociocracy, usually you'll have just roles within the operational meeting. You won't have roles and people. When you're using Dragon Dreaming, you'll have both roles and people, which I find can be confusing sometimes. Yeah.
But in day to day, it can be really practical, right? Because sometimes, you know, people complain a little bit, oh, but we have to create a role, and then you know, sometimes it's something really quick, and then you're just assigned to a person, right? So
exactly.
Yes, there is the video, and Ted already has sent to everyone, right, Ted? Jesse is asking about the video from the first meeting.
May I ask one follow-up?
Yep.
And when it comes, do you have any suggestions on if you're working with volunteers in terms of specifically like the commitment to the roles and how that might work? Like, what is your approach when people are donating time or their energy in that way? What is the right sort of methodology or process?
Okay. One thing that I realized is really important to put the number of hours that role, that the person is expected to dedicate to that role. and really sit down with that person and you know, see if that's really possible with the agenda that they have. And also look, I think what we've found is that when it's an organization where there are volunteers, people need to be really clear on what the win-win is. So if someone's volunteering their time, why are they doing it and what are they getting in return from it? So what are the benefits on both sides? I think that's what we felt, that focus, when that's really clear for people, then commitment is usually higher. Because not only does the person voice what they want to get out of it, but the organization also knows, so both sides can take care of that.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm just aware of the time, and some people might need to leave. So if you guys have other questions, please be welcome to stay a little bit longer. But if you need to leave, just please give us some highlights and some, how can we say, the ponto alto e ponto baixo?
High points and low points.
Yeah, well, yeah. So just give us some feedback, as we do in Dragon Dreaming. This is also very important to celebrate how it was for you guys. So how was this experience for you, and how you're leaving and your checkout? So please write down before you leave. And if you still have any questions, please just stay a little bit longer, and we're here.
Pluses and minuses.
Pluses and minuses. In Portuguese, we have que bom, que pena, que tal. But I don't know how to translate that.
What was good? Que bom, que pena. What was okay? What was and how about maybe next time?
Yeah.
It was great to have the breakout group experience to complement the presentation. Right on.
Beautiful.
Love the framework and the experience. Nara. Excellent experiences. Thanks for bringing it and introduce Dreamocracy. It was fun and inspiring. Thanks, Beatrice.
Cool.
Love the interaction. Thank you, Bernadette.
Did your dream come true, Bernadette?
Yeah.
Yes.
Jessie, very excited to incorporate more creative practices into Sociocracy. The table about strengths and weaknesses of DD and Sociocracy was very useful. Kihan, high points, breakouts, your immediate attention to chat, your customization for this session. Irena, inspiring mix of tools and perspectives. Lorene, I'm so grateful for this exploration. Really value how deeply you embody the integration of these two practices. Very important to be illuminating your work further and further into the world. David, how, where could an organization get more support on implementing DD Sociocracy?
Us.
Yeah, very inspiring. Great to work with the small groups, stretching the comfort zone. Yeah, that's all. That's Dragon Dreaming. Yes. Stepping out of your comfort zone. Catch a lot of information for 2 meetings. Maybe split into 3. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think you're right.
Soon will be an year-long webinar.
Could be, for sure. Victoria, how would the video of this call be made available? I think Ted makes this available.
Yes. Ted, are you still there?
The question is, how will the video of this call be made available?
Yes.
How is this made available? The question is, how will this video be made available?
I sent the recording. Didn't I send the recording to people? Maybe I didn't. The first one. And then the second one, I will somehow bundle it.
Okay. Great. Yeah, the first one you just sent, you sent a link just now, didn't you? Right? So Ted just sent the link to the first video, and then I don't think there needs to be any editing done to this video. I'm not sure, but pretty soon we'll get it off to you. You send it, Ted? Okay. Victoria, really fabulous. I think everyone doing organizational development in corporations should see this work. Oh, thank you. Sophie and Hannah, high points. Hearing how you dissolve tensions, very useful. And for future presentations, maybe try and make the graphical charts a bit simpler. They were a bit confusing in times because a lot of information in them. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very useful feedback.
Okay, so maybe Krishnan, thank you for sharing these wonderful wisdom tools with us and in a fun and inspiring way with good participatory exercises. I'd love to also have optional time to learn more about other participants and have an opt-in contract sheet with basic ideas of what everyone is doing as it is still new in many places, and I'd love to have a support community to discuss common problems or solutions. Yeah, that's good. Jerry, love the quick production rather than overanalyzing. Yeah, right on. Okay.
Beautiful.
Well, maybe we should say goodbye.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We'll stay connected a bit, won't we, Nara, in case anyone has a question or not?
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
yeah, we could stay a few minutes more if anyone has a question.
Okay. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
So I'll stop sharing just in case there's some people here.
Should I stop recording?
I don't know. Sometimes the questions are good.
Okay.
I don't know. Does anyone have a question that they'd like to ask?
I have a question.
Okay.
The framework of dragon dreaming, how does it work when, say, at the time of when we are discussing tension, there is maybe, blaming or conflict or a kind of maybe serious situation. How do we stop at that and then just say we are going to go with this process and not deal with that at that point of time?
I guess this is an art, right? And I rely a lot on the facilitator skills to hold the space. And sometimes the facilitator, we have a session that we have this slide when we put like all the options that the facilitator has at that point, right? So the facilitator, if he or she sees that it's super important to deal with that point, that because it's so it's impacting the people so much that they cannot proceed with the meeting, then I would just stop right there and then and do a process, like a relational process, right? But most of the time the facilitator will just say, okay, so I see that there is something here, can we suspend this and until after the meeting, can you both stay and somebody else will mediate this, or even schedule a time and place for the mediation to happen, right? So it really has like many options, and then facilitator needs to kind of hold the space for either to happen or even consult the group. Sometimes the facilitator hasn't a clue or what is the space that the people of the meeting are in, right? So maybe, okay, let's do a round to check how people are feeling about this. Are we okay to continue with the meeting, or do we need to stop and look at this right now, right? So the facilitation needs to take action, but there are many possibilities for this, how to deal with this, right?
So if one of us have to reach you or Tanya to probably get some clarity on some of the practical difficulties if we are using this method, how do we reach you?
I didn't understand.
No, we can send, when we send information, we're going to send some documents and stuff like that, background information.
Ted has sent your contact details.
Okay.
Oh yeah, to contact us, yes, the emails.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Well, I also had this question about kind of implementation and support, and I'm curious what your experience is for how intensively does an organization that hasn't used Dragon Dreaming or Sociocracy, in your experience, like, I mean, I'm sure it varies based on the different contexts and everything, but how intensively does everyone in the organization need to get a certain baseline of training and orientation versus just some facilitators, or what can you say about the process of implementation in an organization where a lot of this would be new, but maybe the co-ops I'm thinking of, like it's not inconsistent with the spirit of the informal practices that people have been using to make decisions, but it would also be a lot of new specific methods and stuff and tools to learn. So just curious if you can reflect on sort of what you've observed about how intensively does an organization need to commit to adopting these tools, and how much support do they need from the outside typically in training?
Yeah, I would say yes, there is a need for training, especially for sociocracy. For the dragon dreaming processes, we can most often just facilitate them, and then people will understand, as you did today. You know, we can just give people some instructions and people will be able to do them, even though they don't understand the whole process. But it's often good if they understand as well. And for sociocracy, I think from my experience is that you actually need to train people before they can actually apply it. I don't know, Tanya, if you...
For me, there are a couple of factors. I think first, you need to make sure that you have people in higher positions of the organization that are really on board. So we always say that we need sponsors. So, you know, if there are a group of owners, if there are 5 owners and only 3 are on board, that for me is what I've usually seen is a disaster ready to happen. So everyone really needs to be on board, you know, on top. If they really want to do this, okay, let's do this. We got to do it together. So I think that's one key thing for me. The second key thing is doing a training for everyone so that everyone's aware of what the concepts are, what we're talking about, what is consent, what is a role, what is a circle, all these things, like, so people have clarity on that. And then a lot of training of the facilitator, like a lot of facilitator and secretary training. So, and like my experience is that consulting is taking at least a year for organizations. It takes a year for them to really start feeling comfortable with it, because you're really changing the culture of the organization. And I'm speaking from a Brazilian perspective, right? I don't know if it would be easier outside of Brazil. Maybe it would be, I don't know. But here,
that says no.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's all the same, right? And so, but here in Brazil, it's a huge culture shock, and I find that even like in the green organizations, the organizations that, when I say green, you know, I'm talking about like organizations that, non-governmental organizations, like, as you say, that are using some alternative ways of doing things. I find that these organizations are even harder sometimes to implement sociocracy, because they're using methods as a way to kind of say that they're being more collaborative, but often it's just a way to hide the power structures that they don't really want to admit that they still are practicing. So I think there's just a huge learning process that's involved for people. And so for me, it's a lot of training, and we facilitate a lot of the meetings as well. So we do like we train the facilitators, we train the secretaries, and we also stay in the meetings so that we're constantly helping with the structure of the meeting and stuff like that. So we do a lot of stuff to implement.
I'm going to read what Ted wrote.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. You all know the definition of insanity, right? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. That's what sociocracy without training. Exactly, because they keep repeating the same patterns, right? It's not really a training, right? Like, it's like a brainwashing that needs to be done sometimes.
Or unbrainwashing.
Unbrainwashing, exactly.
I would say, because it's unlearning. Yeah, it's unlearning.
Exactly, yeah.
Coming back to a more natural state of being, I would say.
Exactly.
But that's the optimistic view on it, right? That's the humans are inherently collaborative and nice to each other.
Yeah. And
everybody buys in on that.
And it's normal for people to, you know, give up, quit. You know, I've had this project just now that the 2 directors quit. you know, it's really something that changes so much the structure. And they consented to an implementation of Sociocracy, and then when they saw it, it was really, really not what they could live with, right? So it was kind of their major objection was like, oh, we're not staying. And one first and then the other one. And it's really, really kind of crazy. And then I was talking about this with a colleague that implements also self-management with other tools and everything. And then he says, the best implementation of self-management that I have ever had, from the 9 people that were trained, 7 left. And these were like the sponsors of, they were really kind of buying it in the organization, and 7 left for different reasons, right? Not only power issues, but you know, it's something that changes so much because it changes the person, changes the structure. So it's a transformation. So it's normal for people to change as well, right? Some people leave, some people come in.